Hi everyone, this is my final presentation for the safety guide, which I chose to do about trail running safety for beginners. I actually started getting into this just this last summer and took a clinic through Salt Lake Running Company that went over a lot of really useful tips for beginners. So I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to take everything that I learned and put it all into an interactive format. So first, I will go over some of my preliminary work. I always start out my design projects with some research and brainstorming. So here's going over some ideas for title as well as content. I originally was going to focus on women specifically, but I was worried that would instill a little bit of fear. So I switched to trail running for beginners. Then I moved on to some sketches and thumbnails of different layouts for the cover, as well as layouts for each slide, and ideas for content and interactivity here as well. So next I went to InDesign for the digital layout. I actually originally intended for this to be an interactive PDF to be able to share widely with people, as well as allow them to download and print if they wanted to. But I realized that embedding video wasn't supported, so I switched to an EPUB. But before I switched, I created things for the interactive PDF, such as bookmarks to use for navigation. As you can see here, these are all set up, uh, as well as certain accessibility like alt text. So all of my images include this alt text, which can be read to describe the images. But it's not relevant since I changed to an EPUB. So also included in my InDesign document are all these hyperlinks I have set up, which include navigation from my contents page, as well as links to outside resources and websites. So I also have these embedded videos here, which don't show in the InDesign layout, but you'll see in my final design. So from InDesign, I exported to an EPUB, and this is my final document. So starting from the beginning, I have my cover and table of contents, which include these symbols, which I thought would be useful for accessibility for non-English speakers. I do wish I would have included more accessibility overall throughout my document. Here you can see the navigation to each slide. So after the contents, I talk about proper attire and gear for trail running. I start with talking about dressing appropriately for the weather, and include a link to a website here that actually includes a chart for the different temperatures and what is appropriate to wear for those temperatures. Then I talk about proper shoes, accessories such as hats and sunglasses, and then talk a little bit about GPS watches and other gadgets. And then I link to some local retailers, such as Salt Lake Running Company, which my links seem to be working properly, and Cotopaxi, which is another great resource for athletic wear. And my next slide, I talk about hydration, basic principles of hydration, such as how much you should drink before your run and how much into your run you need to hydrate. Then I talk about supplements and ways to carry fluid on your run. My next slide talks about proper form and technique running uphill and downhill, and I included a video here that demonstrates proper form, which you can see
Hi, this is Sandy Night Fever from Running
is
Wild, and
functioning.
I've been getting a lot of questions about uphill and downhill running.
Then my next slide goes over safety on the trails. I go over self-defense maneuvers and also include a video to demonstrate that. I talk about wildlife and insects that you might encounter running on trails, and I also have a link here that discusses what to do with specific types of wildlife that you may encounter running. And I also talk about what to do if you get lost and ways to avoid that. My next slide talks about warming up before your run and cooling down after your run. And as you can see, I've also included some videos here for both, which seem to also be working. And again, some links to places that actually help to teach you these pre and post run exercises, and also offer strength training for runners and other things like that. My last slide talks about proper etiquette trail running, such as passing other runners, running with your dog, what to do with bikers and horses, and also about maintaining the trails and talking about cleaning and respecting all the maintenance that goes into keeping these trails nice. This is a video from Leave No Trace, which is an organization that's dedicated to maintaining the trails, and I also included a link to their organization, which also seems to be functioning. And lastly, I included my references and photo credits. So I'm happy with the way this turned out. Like I said, I wish I would have been able to include more accessibility, but I overall think it's an effective design, and I definitely learned a lot. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you for the next project.